Story 1. I think politicians, not just the president but all members of Congress, should have to place their portfolios in a blind trust. Story 2. If his blatant rug pull for his cryptocurrency did not get any attention, do you really think anything is going to happen now? This entire country is going to collapse, and they are going to laugh the whole way and declare victory over the liberals. Burn it all down. Story 3. I believe that all elected officials should have all their assets invested in the thrift savings plan, just like federal employees. They can then experience the consequences of their actions like everyone else. Story 4. If you can't stop him when he is assaulting women and can't stop him when he is sending innocent people to prison in a foreign country, and can't stop him when he is firing federal employees, and can't stop him when he is rewriting history by removing mentions of women and people of color from websites, what's one more bad thing? Or rather, what will it take? People dying? There are already people dying in IC detention. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. Story 5. Who are these AskReddit threads for? It feels like people are just asking rhetorical questions to an audience that already agrees with them. What is the point? Story 6. I find it utterly laughable that America allowed him anywhere near any position of power, whether in business or politics. They essentially deserve whatever results come from that decision. Story 7. They are obviously not supposed to do that, and this individual does not follow the law or precedent. His followers are largely blind to it, which is really infuriating. Story 8. The president is dishonest, and so is the Republican Party, which supports every illegal action he takes and protects him while ignoring the Constitution and the rule of law. Right, Supreme Court? I am looking at you as well as the House and Senate. All of you are equally corrupt. Story 9. I completed my annual ethics training yesterday. It was surprising to learn that I could be terminated for not reporting a gift or a supplier lunch valued at more than $50, while significant issues are occurring in the White House. Story 10. Honest to God, what can we do? I would absolutely love to take to the streets. In fact, approximately 5 million Americans did just the other day, and nothing will change because of it. How are we supposed to fight back when our government is corrupt and no longer represents the people? Or worse, they are despicable and do represent a large portion of the people. None of us are happy about this. We all see what's happening and want to do something, but writing to my congressman and attending a protest won't really stop any of it. Truly, if you have an idea of what the average American can do beyond that, I would love to hear it, because everyone who sits there saying, "America, when are you going to do something?" is making empty statements. Half of our states are probably larger than your entire country, so organizing is extremely difficult. I am doing what I can. I'm writing to my representatives, attending protests, and talking to my conservative family, though it often feels futile, to see if I can shake their faith in the status quo. But when the government is controlled by those with ill intentions, the average person has little real impact. And short of another civil war or significant change in leadership, I really can't see a solution to this. Story 11, it's called a crash and cash. It was the entire reason he disrupted the markets with his volatility and threats. It's almost as if he dismissed everyone responsible for investigating and prosecuting that kind of crime for a reason. Story 12. It is so transparently corrupt that it is infuriating. He should be in jail. Everyone in a position to challenge this chaotic situation and does not should be ashamed of themselves. Story 13. I just watched a clip of him pointing at Charles Schwab and another man in a room full of people, saying Chuck made $1 billion and the other made $900 million during that group scheme. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on $124 in my checking account with an unpaid mortgage and 3 bills due. I have no subscriptions to anything like Hulu, Netflix, or Amazon. I'm beyond upset. Story 14. After the whole situation involving the assault of numerous women and the purchase of underage sex slaves from Epstein, along with staging a coup, I really couldn't care less. This is akin to asking if it bothers me that a figure like Satan stole from a bank. Sure, I guess it does, but it's also like the 9 millionth horrible thing he has done, and not even breaking into the top 10 worst by a long shot. Story 15. In the past, it was traditional, though not required by law, for presidents and certain other public officials to put their business affairs into a blind trust. Trump was the first to break that tradition. During his first term, he staged a public ceremony where he pretended to hand his businesses over to his children. He was surrounded by large stacks of legal documents in folders he claimed were the paperwork, but they appeared to be childish fakes. All the papers were brand new and presumably blank letter-sized sheets, whereas legal documents are typically printed on legal-sized paper. He then overrode security experts to grant his children top-secret clearances so they could sit in on policy meetings. Even if the handover had been genuine, it ultimately became irrelevant. Story 16. Anyone else miss when AskReddit actually asked real questions instead of focusing on politics? Asking, "How do you feel about an obviously bad political issue?" is pointless. It's preaching to the choir. Keep that on the political subreddits. Story 17. I am frustrated with this person repeatedly breaking the law. If anyone else committed even a fraction of these actions in a day, they would face years in prison. Story 18. If a Democrat did it, it would be illegal. The Supreme Court has granted President Trump immunity from all legal restraints, so everything is fine. Story 19. When in public service, you should not be allowed to buy or sell anything to consumers or investments. Story 20. Insider trading is illegal. Carter had to sell his peanut farm, and he was seen as an unsuccessful president. This represents absolute corruption. Story 21. He is a crook, but he gets away with it all. Republicans don't care, and neither does the Supreme Court. It's frustrating. Story 22. What is the point of these discussions? It is always the same situation. We already know it is bad. We are stuck with it. But please continue discussing. Story 23. It is deeply unjust, but those in power are unlikely to take action. Laws in the United States primarily affect low-income individuals and minorities. Story 24. Horrified, especially because large portions of the country simply do not care that he is blatantly corrupt. Story 25. Reviled by the ongoing crimes committed by a felon in our Oval Office under the guise of official acts sanctioned by a corrupt Supreme Court. Story 26. Everyone who voted for him deserves to lose their pension money, and for those who didn't, I feel sorry for you. Story 27. Americans need to take action and confront this administration immediately. It is time to address these challenges head-on. Story 28. Trump has reached Kim Jong-un's status among his devotees. Anything he does is seen as a stroke of brilliance bordering on omnipresence. Story 29. I am exhausted already, and it has only been a few months. He is a con man, and for some reason, Americans like that. This is blatant market manipulation, but nobody will do anything. Story 30. This time, the funds didn't come exclusively from the pockets of big donors. They came from many retirees and working individuals' retirement accounts. The requirement to invest in retirement accounts as the primary option for savings is a remarkable manifestation of a gambling addiction. Story 31. I am willing to accept a bit of corruption if it is accompanied by an equal or greater level of competence. I do not believe that is our current situation. Story 32. The biggest issue in America is the president. It is challenging to feel outraged anymore. Story 33. Trashing the world economy for a global scheme for a select few would be unacceptable in any other administration, but for Trump, it is just another Thursday. When Americans tell the rest of the world to mind their own business regarding politics, it is concerning. When your politics have this much influence over the global community, it becomes our business. Unfortunately, we do not get a say in the matter. Story 34. This is against American laws. He is a disgrace to humanity. Republicans are not taking any action against him. They have blood money on their hands, and yet they remain inactive. Story 35. Trump represents the culmination of American capitalism. However, we should not forget about Bush. Bush too created false evidence to initiate a war, allowing him and his associates to profit billions. Market manipulation is insignificant compared to using the U.S. military to kill 150,000 people for profit. Story 36. What did America expect when it re-elected a felon? Trump is a grifter, and we knew that going in. Nobody in his past cabinet endorsed him. His last vice president wouldn't endorse him. Dick Cheney wouldn't endorse him. George Bush doesn't like him. Even Mitch McConnell warned us. But instead, a sea of people listened to Joe Rogan. How do I feel? I hope the people who voted for him all lose their retirement savings and their businesses and homes. It's what they deserve, honestly. Story 37. Well, we elected a man who was criminally convicted of fraudulently manipulating his financial records to conceal illegal influences on an election. He has also been found liable in several other fraud cases in courts of law. What did people expect when they chose a serial fraudster? Story 38. I believe they should lose funding and office positions, but I expect to be viewed as the problem for suggesting this. Let's work to make public service respected again. Story 39. This is what occurs when a scam artist and a known felon is allowed into the country's highest and most respected position. This is the consequence of letting a felon control the nation's banking and commerce, affecting the entire planet. He will use this power to manipulate economies for his personal gain. I can only hope that we find a way to reverse everything he owes, down to the last penny. His lawyers should not keep a cent, and he should not benefit from it either. Congress should not retain any of it. It should all be returned to where it was taken from. In one day, he stole more money from the public than he supposedly saved by firing everyone. This is not a good man. This is a felon in the White House. This is not good business. This is not a hard day's work. This is a con, not a capitalist venture. It represents the worst possible scenario of the highest possible crime, an unthinkable act committed by someone who should have the utmost trust of anyone in the country, yet has repeatedly demonstrated he cannot handle that trust responsibly. Story 40. I read at one point that leaders should be chosen at random because those who seek these positions often desire power rather than a commitment to lead. By choosing randomly, you are more likely to get someone who is not motivated by power and is less likely to stay in office for a long time. I think it is worth trying. Story 41. Don't worry. This action is illegal, and I am certain the same law we are held to will be enforced accordingly. After all, society cannot be expected to function if the rule of law is only selectively applied, right? More and more, it seems like many individuals are being carried on the backs of those adhering to an unspoken honor system. Story 42. I'm tired of this subreddit just becoming, what do you think about? Insert headline. Please, it's every top post recently and it's all the same answers. Story 43. Every day we are reminded that it was the voters who wanted him and those who didn't care enough to vote against him that got us into this situation. None of this is surprising. We knew this is who he is and were too apathetic to stop him until he had enough power to be relatively untouchable. The midterm elections aren't going to save us, especially with some members of the Democratic Party regularly voting for Republican agendas. We look at dictatorships in Russia, China, and North Korea and think it couldn't happen to us, but here we are. Everyone is afraid of Trump, and the longer he is president, the more power he gains to nullify any consequences. What he did was insider trading, and everyone involved should face justice. Story 44. Interesting that this exact original post, word for word, is being shared in several forums at once. Clearly, it is totally organic. Story 45. The question to ask is, who is going to do something about it? I understand the risk of being banned, but I don't care about points. Young people are being indoctrinated, and I see it in my little cousins already. It's do or die, and I'm tired of seeing my people die, regardless of their color. Story 46. So much for the greatest country on earth. They are just a bunch of weak, illiterate thieves. Go see Florida, where the old, wealthy retirees possess all the stolen tax money that should have been used to build and uphold the country. Story 47. I feel like it is not illegal according to the Supreme Court of the United States decision confirming that the president is indeed a dictator. Story 48. The Supreme Court ruled that he could break the law without facing punishment. So, just accept it and move on. Story 49. How do I feel about the convicted felon and adjudicated rapist getting away with blatant market manipulation that puts the global economy in a tailspin and undermines decades of United States soft power and foreign policy? Honestly, not too good. Story 50. I believe it should lead to impeachment, removal, and disqualification from public office, followed by criminal prosecution for insider trading. However, this is not even the biggest crime against the people. None of what I think should happen is likely to occur because the enforcement mechanisms of our standards and laws have been thoroughly undermined. The outcome of all of this is not promising. Story 51. I am so done with searching for faith in our political and governmental systems that I would rather see them burned to the ground at this point. It is absurd. Story 52. I think it's less bad than putting millions in your pocket by having your administration spend 3/4 of your term at your golf course, but it's still very bad. Could even be considered impeachable. Story 53. This seems very gross to me. Is there a breakdown and proof of which elected officials bought low right before the announcement? It is unbelievable that Americans are tolerating this. Story 54. He told us what he was going to do if elected for a second term. We cannot pretend to be shocked or disgusted by anything he does. Story 55. I believe that the man should have been in handcuffs this morning and sent to prison for the rest of his life. Story 56. To me, it is another urgent reason that he needs to be impeached and removed immediately. There are numerous other abuses that are also grounds for impeachment. Story 57. A better question is how people can support Trump. At this point, it seems like he could harm all their loved ones and they would still support him. Story 58. As long as Democrats continue to respond with, "That is unethical or illegal, and we are going to address it," this pattern will persist until they make the Democratic Party unlawful. Story 59. I cannot express my true feelings without risking another ban from Reddit. He should be held accountable for insider trading at the very least. Story 60. I will no longer tolerate this, which is why you can find me at every peaceful assembly I can attend. I will also be in front of the state Supreme Court on any random Tuesday, alone with my signs. If we don't fight this now, we will lose forever. Story 61. We knew he would only enrich himself. I don't understand why people are shocked. This is something everyone who opposed him saw happening. It is unfortunate that some are being affected, but I hope everyone who voted for him has a difficult remainder of their lives. Story 62. I feel like running for president in the next election. I may not be a good person, but that's not the focus of my campaign. I'm running on a platform to redistribute wealth and give us what is rightfully ours. I promise to provide outrageous misinformation to the wealthy, while secretly encouraging the working class to take action. This is a despicable moment in the United States. People really need to wake up. 415 was taken from us. At $100,000 a year, you would be working for 4,150 years without being able to spend a penny. This is treason. Story 63. A criminal like that would not have been allowed to run for office in any law-abiding country. Those who enabled that individual, especially him, should be held accountable. I am grateful not to be American. That behavior is a disgrace to your country. Story 64. Other presidents would likely have been impeached over this. With this president and his associates, it is expected and quite disappointing how little they have accomplished. They should all be impeached for their poor performance. Story 65. Joe Biden nearly had his home foreclosed while he was vice president under Barack Obama. The Obamas lent the Bidens money to prevent that from happening. That's why when the supporters of former President Donald Trump were accusing Biden of being corrupt, I chuckled. How many corrupt people ever come close to foreclosure on their house? Story 66. I think it is wrong, corrupt, and vulgar in the most unpleasant and un-American way possible. I am beyond rage and embarrassed to be a citizen of the United States right now, when once I felt proud. If I could wish this all away, I would. Story 67. I love the looks of the conservative subreddit right now. The top post is about not replying to emails that had pronouns in the signature. Story 68. I am no longer allowed to write that. They are already using artificial intelligence to search for people who spoke negatively about the king. It is similar to Russia, where insulting the leader can lead to a visit to a prison camp. Story 69. Feels great. Maybe after the rug pull on his coin and the stock market manipulation, he made enough money to pay off his debts. Story 70, right and wrong, as well as legal and illegal, are no longer the principles by which the United States operates. This country now runs on loyalty and wealth. If you are loyal to the Make America Great Again movement and wealthy, you can do anything you want. If you are disloyal to this movement or belong to the poor or middle class, then the government and companies can do anything they want to you. Story 71. Remember, rules don't matter anymore. The sooner people realize this, the better. Tighten up and ensure that everything in your personal life is in order. We have a challenging 4 years ahead of us at least. Story 72. If I become president, I would immediately seize all assets belonging to Elon Musk and Mike Johnson, along with those of other cabinet members who profited unlawfully. I will then go to Congress. When I am finished, that money will be returned to the Social Security programs, where it belongs, and the redistribution of wealth will be complete. Everyone whose assets are taken will be charged with insider trading, fraud, and other federal crimes, and will be sent to Leavenworth Prison for the rest of their lives. Vote for me in 2028. Story 73. He is a legitimate career criminal with extensive ties to Russian organized crime and money laundering. Therefore, it is not surprising. Read Sarah Kendzior, Andrea Chalupa, Malcolm Nance, Olga Lautman. Story 74. It feels like he should no longer be the sitting president. He should be kneeling in front of a guillotine. Story 75. The government is infiltrated by traitors and criminals. Most people prefer to ignore it. Thus, the quality of life has been degrading over the last 20 years. Story 76. Donald is a criminal. He has been convicted. Donald's behavior does not surprise me at all. I assume the worst in him, and he has not let me down a single time. Story 77. A convicted felon has committed more crimes. News outlets are not covering this. Story 78. That person figured out how to buy low and sell high with a few taps on his phone. What do you think he will do for the remaining 1,381 days until he is gone? Story 79. Literally, a former president would have already been impeached and possibly jailed. I challenge anyone to refute that with facts, not feelings. Story 80. From my observations of the United States during my lifetime, I am not surprised at all. This is less a fall from grace and more like the mask has just fallen off. Every time the United States failed to hold its leadership accountable, a stone was laid that led to Donald Trump. He is both the greatest enemy of the United States and also a manifestation of it. He reflects a nation that believes itself to be beyond reproach. Story 81. This is the biggest financial scandal in American history. The president treated the stock market like a cryptocurrency scam. Story 82. How do you feel about him playing 300 rounds of golf during his first presidency after criticizing Obama for 80 rounds throughout 8 years in 2015? Story 83. I dislike how many people completely ignore the obvious corruption and terrible decision-making as long as marginalized groups are suffering. I may not be able to retire anymore, but at least they are deporting those individuals without due process. Story 84. Biden gave his brother a $40,000 loan for a truck, and he paid it back. Such corruption is concerning. Story 85. Don't worry. Dogecoin is looking into politicians becoming unusually wealthy in a short amount of time. I am sure that if there was foul play, they will get it under control. Story 86. I felt the same way when he promoted 2 cryptocurrency meme coins on Inauguration Day. It is basically legal now. It is frustrating, but there is not much that can be done. Story 87. I feel disgusted, annoyed, and upset about him being a rapist and a racist. It's ridiculous and idiotic that he is our president. Story 88. He is a criminal who is being allowed to get away with destroying our country. My question is, how are all these people looking the other way? Story 89. It is incredible that I had to look up his poll numbers. His approval ratings are in the low to mid-40s, and I believe he will never go below 33%, which represents his core supporters. When Joe Biden was president, the media announced every day how bad his approval ratings were. Now, with this individual, there is silence. Story 90. I think it's not shocking. For some reason, I am surprised that Republican voters find it perfectly acceptable. Then again, they think shipping people they don't like to prisons is okay. Story 91. Words fail. So do actions as he remains in his position. I honestly cannot believe there is still not enough evidence of incompetence and illegal actions to finally hold him accountable. Story 92. Best comment I've seen today. Defund the US stock market. It's a farce. Workers in the sex industry are more reliable than US institutions. They have more respect for your money and are less unpleasant. Story 93. Someone has turned the stock market into the world's biggest casino. Hey, it's the guy who bankrupted 6 casinos. This can't end well. Want to bet? King Donald is above the law. Story 94. This level of corruption is common in developing and authoritarian countries. For those experiencing it, this reality seems normal. Many outsiders anticipated it. The United States has never faced this level of public corruption in its history, which is why many of its ordinary citizens are shocked. This unfortunate situation will ultimately impact the everyday lives of its citizens. Story 95. I've stopped worrying about it since the Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. If it wasn't Donald Trump, it would have been someone else after that point. Why make a couple million with government insider trading when you can get billions and claim immunity? Hence my amusement at today's announcement of investigations into insider trading by the president. He can just say he made a mistake and thought these policies would work, so he invested to demonstrate his belief in them. Then again, we have Trump and his team promoting the idea that losing money doesn't mean anything while they exploit the country. Just stop eating avocado toast, Starbucks, and everything else that makes life enjoyable. Story 96. America has always been an oligarchic, authoritarian state. The only difference now is that it is overt, not covert. There is no turning back from this. Story 97. I wonder how many cycles of enacting tariffs and pausing them will take before it is realized that it is just stock manipulation. In other news, the Trump administration is reducing cryptocurrency oversight to facilitate more direct financial gains. Story 98. This is why most presidents must divest from their personal companies during their presidency. It creates too many temptations and appears inappropriate if they personally profit from the policies or decisions they are promoting. The presidency has once again become a platform for personal gain, which is unfortunate. Presidents are expected to visit secure government locations, such as Camp David, rather than their own properties, golf courses, or hotels, where the costs incurred by security personnel and staff become guaranteed income with each visit. Story 99. Articles of impeachment should have been brought against him at least 5 times for violations of the Emoluments Clause. This is the largest scandal in American history. Story 100. Something like 77 million patriotic Americans think it's awesome. They knowingly voted for things like this. Absolutely America. Freedom lovers. Story 101. A complete betrayal of the American people. Any mindset that seeks to normalize this or excuse it is unacceptable. No one in a government position should possess 7 or more figures of capital at any time. Public servants should prioritize the community, not benefit from insider trading and market manipulation. Checks and balances are entirely absent. This is not the America I learned about in civics class. This is the dystopian nightmare that books, television shows, and video games predicted. Heartless and soulless, with no regard for human decency and no respect for the common good. I could elaborate further, but it all sums up to a feeling of disgust and a grim outlook for the well-being of this country, which I wish to distance myself from completely. Story 102. How do I feel? This is his way. He is numbing us to extreme things repeatedly, so when he does the craziest thing yet, we won't even blink. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.